It's another beautiful sunny day in Miami, and we are coming to you live from the WDNA Jazz Gallery. This is WDNA 88.9 FM with the Frost Jazz Hour that comes to you every Thursday at 11 a.m. Listeners, especially people who listen on Thursdays to this show, know how much I say it's always an honor and a privilege to be here live and to be listening to these great, amazing groups. Today, you would never believe it, we have 9 French horns here with the Richard Todd Ensemble playing his very own arrangements. Richard Todd is jazz artist, classical artist in general, director at Frost, and he will be directing his group with the first tune, a Henry Mancini tune, Days of Wine and Roses.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
The Days of Wine and Roses is something that we perform every year. The Frost Horns has a concert every spring. Actually, this year our concert is on March the 19th. And it will be in our brand new Newman Recital Hall. It will be live streamed, but we also welcome a live audience as well. The Days of Wine and Roses arrangement was something I did for my With a Twist record in honor of my teacher, Vincent DeRosa, who was the horn player that played the opening solo on the movie soundtrack. He was Henry Mancini's solo hornist all the time. And for those of you that know the movie, it's actually a very kind of tragic movie to a certain degree because it's about alcoholism, and it stars, I believe, Jack Lemmon and Lee Remick. And so the idea that this movie opens up with this really beautiful melody is really kind of almost a juxtaposition to the rest of the film. But we're going to go ahead and play this. And our solo hornist on this particular occasion will be Josiah Wallace, playing the part of Vincent DeRosa. So I hope you like this.
of Wine and Roses, an arrangement of program director at Frost and jazz artist Richard Todd.
Yes, thank you. This is really kind of a unique moment, I think, for WDNA, for the Frost School of Music, and for this horn studio, because I believe it's the first time ever that a studio from the classical music department has ever performed on WDNA. And we couldn't be more pleased to be the first ones to do it, and one would have never thought that the French horn would be that instrument that would be featured. But one thing that we aspire to at Frost is a non-silo environment. And we are trained classically, all of us, but we do branch out and do different things, as I think you'll hear today. This next piece we're going to do is, of course, by the great songwriter Hoagy Carmichael, with the words by Mitchell Parrish. This song was written actually in 1927, and it's one of Hoagie's kind of most famous compositions, Stardust. Years ago, when the Henry Mancini Institute, before it came to the University of Miami and the Frost School of Music, the Henry Mancini Institute was a summer 4-week festival, for lack of a better term, that was situated at UCLA. And I was actually involved as one of the teachers and mentors at the Mancini Institute since the day it began. And it started off as kind of a very small thing, and eventually ended up as a true destination summer place for really top-notch college students from all over the country, and indeed from other countries. One of the students at the Mancini Institute during one of the summers was our own is Frost School of Music's own A.T.N. Charles, who I remember was just coming in and just burning down the house in one of our summer festivals. And so I did this little arrangement of Stardust for one of our chamber music concerts, because chamber music there was very much like what we do at Frost. It was classical based, it was jazz based, it was pop based, and all of which was done on a very high level. You would hear somebody play a movement of a Beethoven string quartet, and then you would hear a group play maybe a tune from one of Chick Corea's electric band records. Or a Horace Silver tune or something, and so we have branched out and we've done a lot of different things, and so I did this little arrangement, and the students at the Mancini Institute played it on one of the concerts, and Ginny Mancini was actually there. She was of course a big supporter and a founder of the thing, and she just loved the way that this sounded. So I hope that you all will like it just as much. Usually it's for 5 horns, and usually I've got 5 students to play it, but one of our students was not able to make it today, so I'm actually going to sit in and play the low horn part with these guys. So usually I end up conducting it, but today I'm going to be playing and kind of conducting from the chair a little bit. So here it is, Stardust.
WDNA 88.9 FM with the director at Frost and jazz artist Richard Todd playing his very own arrangement of Hoagy Carmichael's Stardust. This is WDNA 88.9 FM, the Frost Jazz Hour that comes to you every Thursday at 11 a.m. I'm always so happy when we have some folks live in the audience. It makes all the difference. And today we have the debut of the Richard Todd Ensemble with 9 French horns playing the arrangements of Richard Todd himself. That was Stardust, Hoagie Carmichael. I'm going to take a second to introduce all the members of the band. On the horns, we have Haley Avery, Hannah Christensen, Seth Corlew, Daniel Fernandez, Julia Margillet, Judiny LeBron, Josiah Wallace, Elliot Foose, Joseph Herring. In the rhythm section, Kevin Vanier, Theo Stathopoulos, Aiden Ramirez. We're going to take a short break and we'll be back with some more music swing time here on WDNA 88.9 FM. WDNA 88.9 FM with the Richard Todd Ensemble, 9 French horns here in the WDNA Jazz Gallery.
This next tune is going to feature a majority, it's a horn quartet. And 3 of the players are graduate students, and 1 of the players is a freshman. And there are a number of horn quartets that were written by a horn player, actually, based in Buffalo. He was a member of the Buffalo Symphony. And okay, we got Buffalo in the house. We got Buffalo in the house. All right. And he wrote a series of these, must have been 30 horn quartets, all in different types of styles. His name is Lowell Shaw. Goes by the nickname of Spike, and which seems rather appropriate. This is one of those quartets. They're actually called fripperies. And this is one of the fripperies, which we've kind of... and Lowell, by the way, is still alive. He's 93 years old and still with us and still doing his thing. And we greatly appreciate his contribution to our art form. And so this quartet is going to play one of the fripperies, which we have lovingly retitled today Swing Time. Hit it, guys.
88.9 FM, Frost Jazz Hour. I was just commenting to our very own Richard Todd. I never thought I'd see the day where, you get to see even one French horn in a jazz setting. Today we get to see 9, and I am just over the moon to be here today and be able to listen and host the show. I know the WDNA listeners, whether they're at home, whether they're listening in the car, this is definitely a treat. And you can always log on, WDNA listeners, you can always log on to WDNA.org and listen back to the shows. We have had Richard Todd with us. This is our 3rd time, and he's presented his other records, talks about his wonderful career, and being able to share that with the WDNA listeners, whether you're a musician or just a music lover. I can truly say he's an encyclopedia of knowledge, whether it comes to the film industry, the jazz world, classical world, just so much information. So I just have a few questions. These happen to be some of my favorite tunes, particularly Stardust. When I was studying at Frost, that was one of the tunes that I just could not stop listening to, Nat King Cole's version. So how did you come up with this repertoire list for today's show?
I just like to listen to and play really great music. I love great melody. I'm a melody freak. I love to hear a beautiful melody. And all of these tunes have great melodies. And with great melodies comes great harmony. And you put those two together and put the right feel behind it, and you get this kind of result. One of the things I'm really terribly proud of this studio, and as it reflects on what the Frost School is that this is not their normal purview either. This section has performed symphonies by Gustav Mahler this year. They performed incredible music, Daphnis and Chloe by Ravel. They've are about to play the Rachmaninoff Symphonic Dances until Eulenspiegel, and we're going to finish out the year with Beethoven Ninth Symphony. And so, 90% of the work that they do is towards their classical playing careers. So for them to kind of be able to put on a different hat and come in and really kind of feel this music with the style that it needs to be felt, I think is really a great tribute to these guys' dedication to kind of doing this, and also to the vision that the Frost School has for what they see, a 21st century musician to be like, somebody that can do more than just one thing and excel at more than just one thing. And I'd like to think that I've had a little bit of that kind of success in my life, and so to be able to be in a place that not only not only does that kind of thing, but encourages that kind of thinking, right, I think is a great testament to, what the Frost School is, the vision of our dean, Shelley Berg, and what we are doing to help the 21st century of music.
Definitely. And I really appreciate what you specifically bring to the table, because you are, in a sense, preparing these folks for a career like yours, someone that can step into a room and play anything.
And I think that another thing that we need to kind of consider in all of this is that it's entirely possible that not everybody in this ensemble is going to have a career playing their instruments. But what they are going to have also a career in, and you never say never for anything, but one can never predict anything. But they're prepared in so many different ways, the types of things that they study, music business, music technology. One of our performers here is a music engineering major. And, it's just so cool to kind of see the world of music through their eyes as well, because they're the way that they see things are very different than the way I saw things when I was their age. I got my college degree just a few years after electricity was invented, and so things were very different back then, and their access to all of this amazing technology and stuff was something that I did not ever have that luxury of affording. With that access also kind of comes a little bit of we have to do a balancing act with how things are researched and how things are repeated and so on and so forth, because I didn't have spell check. I didn't have I didn't have Google. All of my work had to be through studying in the library and writing by hand and getting graded on spelling and penmanship and all that kind of stuff. Different levels of research that happen now. So what these guys do and how they do it, to me, is something that not only I help mentor them with things, but they also teach me a little bit. And I think that that's a very important thing for a professor to understand, is that if they don't learn from their students, they're not doing as complete a job as they should.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. So what is your approach when it comes to, I know you were mentioning that we have so much access to information. So when it comes to studying these different genres or art forms, this, for example, this set list, what is the approach that you have with your students when it comes to doing research on the lineage of the music?
Listening to different styles of music, really getting down deep and listening. I talk to them all the time that they need to do 30 to 45 minutes of deep listening every day. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, sometimes they don't have the time. But what I mean by deep listening is really doing nothing else but sitting there and listening. And that's really what got me into jazz playing, was not the improvisational part of it, but I wanted to learn the language. I wanted to learn how jazz musicians articulated notes. I wanted to learn the different colors that they can make. I wanted to learn how to release things, which are all very different parts of language than what classical musicians do. And the improvisation kind of came along the way because my first instrument was keyboards, and I played keyboards in a rock and roll band, so I was used to improvising in a rock band. But when I decided I wanted to get serious about playing jazz, I started listening intently to really the Count Basie Orchestra, and the music that I listened to was a lot of the artists that were on the Norman Granz labels, all the Pablo stuff, Joe Pass and Clark Terry, Oscar Peterson, Art Tatum, those guys just blew my mind. Milt Jackson, Niels Henning Ørsted Peterson, of course, Ray Brown, just listening to these guys again and again and again, and listening to the Basie Band and what made the Basie Band so unique and spectacular. And how did they shade their sounds? How do they color things? They had probably the greatest timing pianist of all time in Count Basie. He could play one note in a bar, and it would always be in exactly the right spot, and it would make that bar swing harder than if he hadn't played that one note. The backbone of that band was oh gosh, I've been the guitar player, Freddie Green. Thank you, God. I've been espousing Freddie Green's greatness all along here, but that sound of Freddie Green's guitar, we're going to do our best to kind of replicate that when we play Little Darlin'. And this entire experience for these kids is just so fantastic.
Definitely. And when you say the listening, it just makes me think of, I could be in the car listening to one record, and not even just one record, but one song. Mm-hmm. I kid you not, I went through an entire road trip just listening to one record. And so these are the details that take a musician from one level to the next: the articulation, the dynamics, the releases, all these things that you're saying. So, if there is a record that you've listened to a lot, what are some things that you've learned from specific, maybe just one record?
Well,
I know it's a hard question.
It's hard to say one record because I can't even address one artist because I would take different things in terms of phrasing. I think I probably learned more about phrasing from Frank Sinatra. Listening to Frank Sinatra sing, listening to Joe Williams sing, listening to Ray Charles sing. I learned a lot from listening to singers. Listening to like Colors of Sound, absolutely Basie and Duke Ellington. Those two bands with their Colors of Sound. And Claude Thornhill's band as well had a lot of really beautiful colors. Solo playing, there is some element of French horn additions to the repertoire. The greatest name of them all was Julius Watkins in New York, who had a wonderful career like in the 50s and 60s. He played with basically all the big artists in New York. He was part of Monk's band for a while, and believe me, if you could play with Monk, you could play. Because Monk, to me, is one of the most complex jazz writers ever. Monk and Mingus, to me. And he was great. There was a guy on the West Coast named John Gross, who was part of the West Coast sound in the 1950s and 60s, along with Shorty Rogers on trumpet, Jerry Mulligan, of course, when he moved from New York to L.A., Herb Geller, you name it, about Buddy Collette, Bill Green, not Marshall Royal. Anyway, just so many people, Red Callender. But beyond that, there weren't that many horn players. So, like for me, it was hard for me to listen to a lot of horn playing because it was so limited. So I got most of my influence by listening to other instruments.
And the instruments, right. Well, thank you so much. Like I said before, it's an honor and privilege to have you and these wonderful musicians here with us on WDNA 88.9 FM. Next tune. Nightingale
sang in Berkeley Square, which was written by Manning Sherwin. The lyrics are by Eric Moschwitz. This arrangement is by the great Gene Perling, who was one of the members of, I believe, the Hi-Los, and did a lot of their vocal arrangements. This actual arrangement was done for the Manhattan Transfer.
Oh, wow.
For one of their records. And so the takedown of the Perling chart was done by a gentleman named Alan Mattingly. So we hope you like this. The four people that are playing on this is Joseph Herring, Elliot Foose, Judeni LeBron, and Josiah Wallace. Here we go. Just keep playing, okay? And
in Barclay Square. We are here on WDNA 88.9 FM, live in the Jazz Gallery with jazz artist Richard Todd. That was an arrangement by Gene Perling. There's so much to learn from Gene Perling's arrangements.
Boy, are there ever. What an absolute genius he was. And what a fantastic contribution he made to the art of not only vocal music, but just the art of music completely. If I might, I would like to do like a little bit of promotion for our spring
Please.
concert coming up. Every year, the studio does a concert in the spring. We like to call it Frost Horns and Friends, because we always play some music on our own, but we also invite some of our colleagues in the Frost School to come play with us, and they're not always from the the classical department is what they call the musical instrumental performance department, MIP. And when I made an announcement at the last faculty meeting about this particular hour that we're spending here today, I made an announcement that MIP was going to be invading WDNA for the first time. And it is so cool that we're doing this. But our annual Frost Horns and Friends concert is going to be on Tuesday, March the 19th. And we're pretty much prepared to do it. We have some other works. We're going to play pretty much everything that you heard today on that concert, but we're also playing some classically based music written by a number of non-jazz people. One kind of classical / commercial sounding work we're doing is called a Sierra Nevada, and that was written by Shorty Rogers, who was a trumpet player, as I mentioned earlier, part of the West Coast jazz scene, but he was also a TV writer. He wrote a lot of music for TV in the 1960s and 70s. And another work is called El Prado, and that's by John Parker, who also, I did a lot of sessions with Johnny Parker in the 1980s, and on shows like Dallas and Dynasty and stuff like that. So we're really excited about having a number of different players. We're going to have a trumpet, we're going to have a flute, we're going to have a guitar, we're going to have bass and drums, we're going to have a tuba. And we're going to just have so much fun. It's Tuesday, March the 19th at 7:30 in the Newman Recital Hall, and it will be live streamed. The night after that, one of my students, Josiah Wallace, who I want to give a special shout out to because he really was the driving force behind getting all of the players, organizing all of the music, being basically librarian, prompter, reminder, and so on. So a special shout to Josiah for putting in all the time that he put in on this. And three of our friends that are going to be playing with us are the three rhythm section guys that are that volunteered to come in and play with us today. Kevin Venier, Theo Stathopoulos, and Aiden Ramirez, guitar, bass, and drums. This is the great Count Basie tune written by Neil Hefti. And arranged, I need to give a special shout out because, of course, Hefti didn't write this. He wrote this for the Count Basie band. He didn't write it for a bunch of horns. And so at the beginning of this semester, I reached out to Stephen Guerra, who is one of the wonderful Frost jazz faculty, and I asked him if he had a student that would be interested in doing this arrangement for us, and because I just thought that Little Darlin' would just sit so beautifully for horns. And so a young man by the name of Thomas Weglinski stepped up and said, yeah, I'll do it. And he had the chart done within a week. And so we are premiering Thomas Weglinski's arrangement of Neil Hefti's Little Darlin' written for the Count Basie Band. We're playing on this one. One, two, 1, 2, 3.
lovely arrangement. Thomas Winglinski from the Frost jazz program. That was Lil Darlin, Richard Todd's Ensemble here on WDNA 88.9 again. Once again, I just want to give you a heartfelt thank you from myself, the rest of WDNA, the Frost Jazz community for the work that this ensemble, this group, that you are doing. I really feel like it's important what you're doing because, like you said, the way that music, the direction that music is going in today is just a combination of so many different genres because now we have access to so much music.
We do. And, this performance is coming off the heels of last night. I and one of the members of this studio, Judeni LeBron, performed with the Palm Beach Symphony last night, playing a Tchaikovsky symphony, and a Mozart piano concerto. So this is really kind of flipping everything on its head, and that's what we do at Frost.
Definitely. And, as someone that went to Frost, I can say to everyone who is in here right now, cherish every single moment because the musicians that you're amongst right now are truly some of the best, and you're going to run into each other in the future. I can tell you that right now. So thank you once again. So I'm going to go through the list of tunes just one more time for anyone who was listening to the second half of the show. You listened to Swing Time at the bottom of the hour, followed by Nightingale sang in Barclay Square and Lil Darlin. I'll also take another moment just to remind WDNA listeners that you guys have a concert coming up March 19th.
March the 19th, Frost, Horns, and Friends. March the 20th is Josiah Wallace's Final Masters recital. And March 21st is the Frost Chamber Players concert, which I will be performing a sonata for horn and piano by Paul Hindemith. So we've got a lot of music on our plates.
Lots of music, lots of dates coming up. And like I said before, WDNA listeners, you can always log on to WDNA.org to stream all of our previous concerts, to stream the Frost Jazz Hour. Thank you so much for being here. And we'll see you next time on WDNA's Frost Jazz Hour. Up next, we have BBC News.